Hey there, fellow lawyers. My name is Maria Hanna-Levin, and you're watching this video because you're about to start your own practice right out of law school, and you kind of need all the help you can get. So I have Michael Howard Wolf with me today, and he is a lawyer from Florida, Port Lauderdale, right?
Yes.
Great. And he's been practicing law for over 40 years. He started his law firm a year after law school or a year after the bar. And it's been an amazing journey. He's going to tell us a little bit about it, and we're going to ask him a few questions for your benefit, and we're going to start. So, Michael, can you tell us a little bit about your legal journey, from law school and how you got to this point?
Sure. I finished law school in 2.5 years, pretty much because I couldn't take it anymore. But and after that too, because I went during the summer to make up the credits, and then I treated law school as a 3-year preparation for the bar exam. I didn't really care. I cared that I passed, obviously, but the idea is to pass the bar because graduating from law school and passing the bar are both requisites to practice law in the state of Florida and every other state in the union as well. So when I found out that I passed the bar, obviously the first thing we do is look for a job. And I was lucky, and I found somebody whose wife was a judicial assistant, and I got to talk with her and meet her. And she recommended me to her husband, who was the lawyer, and he was a sole practitioner and practiced primarily workers' compensation, but had other areas of general practice as well. And he was at the point in his career where he thought he would want to have a young associate that could handle all of the supposedly routine types of matters. I really didn't do any work on workers' compensation cases. I basically did everything else. So I was with him for probably about a year, but a lot of that was like practicing on your own because he wasn't around a lot of times, and he would just put the files on my desk and say, take care of them, and I was kind of flopping in the breeze, so to speak. So after that year, and he decided he didn't need me anymore, I decided to, with the assistance of my mother, I must say, and I was able to open my own practice, and her lawyer gave me a suite in his office building in order to practice for a very reasonable rate. And there I was with an office and no clients. So, but I had a built-in advantage, and that was that my father and my mother, being longtime residents of South Florida, had built up a lot of connections, and my father was into politics a little bit, so there were more connections, and that's how I started my practice. And I did some work for my mother's lawyer while I was there, but the rent was reasonable, and I had a part-time secretary twice a week and what have you, and was just trolling for business, as it were.
So how did you go about, finding those first clients?
Well, I must say, I didn't go out and find them. They were mostly referred to me by my mother, my father, my friends, all right? One advantage that I had when I got out of law school was that most people back then in the middle 70s, after they got out of law school and passed the bar, everybody went and worked for somebody. State attorney's office, public defender's office, attorney general's office, small firms, big firms, whatever it may be, corporate, it really didn't matter. And so I found myself as being the only one of all of my classmates that I knew that had opened their own practice. And so I made that fact known to everyone, all of my friends from law school and what have you, all my contacts from law school. And the business started trickling in. And as the business starts trickling in and you do a good job, then word gets out, and that's essentially is the genesis of my law practice. I also got lucky a little bit in that I had, like, for example, one of the South Florida's premier roofing companies. Their office assistant was calling, looking for a lawyer by the name of Wolf that he had been referred to. Of course, I wasn't the one that he was referred to, but we got into a nice discussion, and he said, "Do you do this kind of law? Do you know how mechanics liens and this, that, and the other thing?" "Sure, I know everything." Right? Ha. And so that's how I acquired that client. And then I had one of the biggest credit unions down here in South Florida. I was handling like a small house closing for somebody. I didn't know how to do closings, and there was the credit union had a lien on the property, and so I had to clear that up. So I wound up calling the credit union and talking to the general manager. And right at the end of the conversation, he says, "Oh, by the way, do you do banking law?" And I'm like, "Sure. What do you want to know?" And so he said, "Well, we can't seem to get in touch with our lawyer, and we got 3 hearings in the morning, and we don't know what to do." And I said, "Send me over the documents. I'll show up in court for you." And I did, and I was successful on all 3 hearings somehow or another. And they became my client for the next 15 years or so. So that's how things can get started. You need a little luck. Never hurts, right? You need to be in the right place at the right time. You need to have a good knack for selling yourself, for convincing potential clients that you have the expertise and know how to handle their matter, and that you care about their matter. You need to be very diligent when you're returning phone calls and messages and what have you. One of the biggest things that I learned, and I did reading and all that kind of stuff there were some very good books on how to manage a law office and how to keep and attract clients. And I took a lot of that advice to heart. For example, sitting next to somebody on an airplane and you just talking to them about this, that, or the other thing, and the plane lands, and usually you just say goodbye and good luck, right? But I would never do that without giving them a business card, right? In case you're ever in need. I mean, that's just one example. Sending Christmas cards every year to your clients, or having some kind of promotion and what have you. You want your clients to know that you care and that you think about them, all right? And that is, I would have to say that through the course of my career, and I'm lucky that I learned that early in my career, but that to me is priority number one. The number one thing that people look for in their lawyer is somebody who cares about them, is responsive to them. Yeah, it's nice if you get them good results, but a lot of times you may not get the best result, and the client's still going to like you because they understand that not every lawyer wins every case, obviously, but they have a good, a sense of warmth towards you, that they're not afraid to call you again, right? On the other hand, if you're not responsive and you're not attentive to your clients, right, then usually they're going to have a problem with calling you again. And if you happen to get a bad result for them, then you're never going to hear from them again, right? But if you demonstrate that you care about your client, that you're responsive to your client, then word gets out about that as well. And that's how things mushroom into a successful law practice from that little beginning.
Great. So when you started your firm, did you have a good grasp of anything? Like, how did you know that you were ready to take the case? And what did you do to really prepare yourself before court?
Well, I routinely would not turn down business. All right? Now, I didn't care if I had any experience or knowledge in that area. I mean, here, somebody's been out of law school for a year, all right, hasn't learned how to practice law. I don't care who they are. All right, you don't know how. And here, most people get out of law school, they pass the bar, and they go to work for somebody. They have mentors around them. But when you open your own practice, you do not have mentors around you. And so what do? You kind of learn by the seat of your pants. You learn on the fly. So just for example, a friend of mine came to me and wanted me to handle a situation where he had bought stock or something in a company and wanted to get it back. And so he came to me and he said, "Can you handle this for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" And I went ahead and filed a lawsuit, a complaint in the circuit court, and the other lawyer files a motion to dismiss, right? And so I'm freaking out. Oh my God, I can't lose this hearing, because if the case gets dismissed, my friend's not going to like me anymore, and what have you. And I went to court, and the judge ruled against me, but he said, "Well, I can grant the motion to dismiss. I'll give you 20 days to amend it," right? And so I learned right there, I can make errors initially and have a window within which to correct it, right? And that was important to learn, and that's how, that gave me some confidence that I could take subject matter cases that I may have not had any familiarity with, which was like every subject matter at that point, and and run with it and just do the best I could to get myself up to speed on the issues that were involved. And over a period of time, I learned how to do that better and better.
So that's pretty incredible, and that's how you learn all these practice areas, because the list is amazing. I'm actually going to read it because memorizing the entire thing, but just, business law and criminal law and civil litigation and divorce law and gaming law and, personal injury, immigration. You really do it all.
We do it all, because even though I've been practicing for more than 40 years, I still don't turn down business. Right? And so, and over those years, obviously, I became pretty adept at adopting to the particular practice area. The one little niche of my practice, though, that really helped me to expand very widely was actually the gaming law little niche. Right? There aren't really any lawyers in Florida that do that except me, but when I got involved with that, I didn't realize that there were so many various subject matters that were important to being able to represent that industry: criminal law, forfeiture law, contract law, landlord and tenant law, municipal law, zoning law, politics, all right? And all of those things were part of representing the gaming industry. So yes, I had to learn a lot of municipal law. I never handled anything like that. I didn't know anything about zoning or, what have you. I didn't really know much about anything. I don't know about criminal law, forfeiture law. I hated doing real estate closings. I hate drawing up contracts, because that's, for me, is mundane work. I like to talk, as you can see. So it was an area of practice for me to get into, which was in the late 90s, actually. And from that point on, my practice areas were able to expand exponentially. I had been doing a lot of divorce law, and I kind of kept on doing that. Now, the first case that I would turn down would be a divorce case, because it just, I swore to myself 15 times I would never take another divorce case, and every time I take another divorce case. But I think the last one cured me, so I don't think I'm going to have to deal with that anymore. So, and obviously I didn't have anything to do with gaming law, but when your clients, even in a different area, want you to handle their stuff, for example, I have clients, I tell them, I don't do divorce law. Come on, just do it for me, right? And yeah, I don't know anything about divorce law, right? I'm a terrible divorce. Mike, just handle it, all right? You're the only one I trust, all right? So I feel bad, and I wind up doing it. And when you have, all these clients, like, for example, all the clients that I had from the gaming industries, who do you think was the first one they called if they had a legal problem that didn't have to do with gaming? They'd always call me. Can you handle this? If you can't handle it, can you give us somebody that would? I said, I'll handle it. I didn't care what it was. I just don't like to turn down business. I still don't like to turn down. It's one of my faults, right? So I would tell your young lawyers that may be watching this interview, at the end of the day, it pays to be a little bit selective about the cases that you take, all right? So, for example, the first time that you meet with a client, right? If that client comes in and they've got a notepad of questions that they're going to ask you, they take notes about everything that you're saying, all right? That's kind of an indication that you're dealing with a problem, right? Now, you wouldn't think that necessarily because you would expect people want to come in, but anybody that comes to you and starts writing down everything that you say, all right, and had a pre-printed list of questions that they were going to ask you when they got there, that's a little bit shaky. And so that's one of the first telltale signs that the client may be problematic, right? If you don't know the subject matter and you get the sense that, maybe that's a little bit over my head, you don't say that to the client. You say to the client, I don't have a lot of experience in that area, all right, but I know somebody that does. Would it be all right with you if I associated him on your case, right? Now, that's not a negative towards yourself. Clients are going to think that you're being open and honest and you care about them getting the best representation, right? So don't be like I was, all right? Every client that called, do you know anything about banking law? Do you know anything about mechanics lien laws? Do you know anything about real estate? Whatever. And my pat answer was, sure, what do you want to know? All right? That's, I got to tell you, not the best approach, all right? Because problematic clients become more than problematic. Not only are they difficult to deal with, difficult to get paid from, difficult to please, all right? But if there's anything that they don't like, all right, what are they going to do? They're going to run to the Florida bar, all right? And then you have to deal with that, all right? So it just isn't worth it, all right? Maintaining your integrity and your ethics is humongously important for a young lawyer because that's what your professional reputation is going to be built upon, all right? Are you honest, right? Are you efficient? Are you somebody that we can deal with and negotiate, all right? And those are the kinds of things that help to build your reputation. So anytime that a young lawyer feels like they might be crawling up the unethical tree, all right, it's time to take a step back, think about what you're doing, ask yourself, is this something that could get me in trouble if it's found out? And if the answer is even maybe, then you start to take precautions and think long and hard before taking an action that could constitute an ethical violation. And I think that that's one of the things that in law school they don't teach. There are ethics courses, and the Florida bar exam includes a part that is devoted to legal ethics, right? I mean, it even was back when I graduated law school and took the bar, but it was very new, right? And so we all knew then what the questions were going to be because it had only been on the bar exam once before, right? So we all had a good idea of that, and it turned out that was the easiest part of the bar exam, but it didn't help when you get out in the real world and you're not taking a test. And well, in a way you are taking a test, but you're not taking a test. You are actually doing and saying things in the real world that have implications. And so I would just, anyone watching this interview should know that of the few things that I would put right at the top of the list as suggestions for new lawyers, establishing and maintaining your professional credibility is right up there at the top as well.
Great. So when you first started, practicing law, did you have any sort of idea what it is that you wanted to do, or did you just go to, whatever practice area the lawyer that would take you on would be?
I would say that a great majority of lawyers that have specialties or primarily practice in one area of law, the way that came about was not because they had any idea that that's what they wanted to do when they were in law school, right? But they got out, they got a job. It's a subject matter that you learn. For example, we have a lot of large personal injury firms. So someone gets out of law school, they get hired as an associate with one of these personal injury firms, right? And they stay there 3 or 4 years, and then they get out, decide they want to open their own practice. Well, what do you think is going to be their specialty, right? I had no idea that they were going to, get into it. Now, maybe they found that they enjoyed it and they wanted to stick to it, right? But my experience was a little bit different because the specialty that my first employer had was workers' compensation, but he never let me deal in that particular area. I think he was afraid I was going to go out on my own and compete with him. That's what I think, right? So I didn't do that. So he gave me all the other general stuff. So I was already used to handling different areas of practice because of that year that I had with my first employer. And so it didn't seem to me when I opened my own office that it would be something that would curtail me in the matters that I took. And so even when I opened my own practice, I had all these different areas of practice that came in, and I realized, well, I can't say that I just do divorce or I just do real estate or I just do business law or whatever it might be. I had to adapt because I wanted the business and I wanted the client. And so I would do what I had to do in order to at least get a little bit knowledgeable enough to fake it, right? Which sometimes you have to do. But that's what young lawyers are going to find. I mean, you just don't know when you get out of law school what area of practice you're going to enjoy, that you're going to be passionate about. That you want to wake up every day and get right to it, all right? Because that's the beauty of practicing law. You can find a subject area that you will have passion about, that you will feel comfortable with, that you do feel that you have expertise above and beyond what some lawyers who are not in the same specialty can do. And that's what's going to happen. I'm telling your listeners, that's what's going to happen. You're going to get out of law school. You're going to get a job. That is what's going to become your specialty, or that which falls into your lap. All right, like the gaming stuff did for me. And it took quite a few years, but eventually I became the number one expert in the state on it because I was so passionate about it. I would spend more time on those cases, talking to those people, researching the law, going to court and all that stuff. And I never dreaded 1 second of it. I've always lived by the motto that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Right.
Now, I don't know many lawyers that would, have say that they've never worked a day in their lives because they enjoy it so much. That's a different issue altogether.
Right.
So here in Israel, you would usually go through a year of internship, which is, a practice before in an actual law firm or the district attorney's office, before you can actually take the bar. And then, people who become lawyers have that year of experience. But for those that are either practicing in different jurisdictions or are moving from one practice area to another, for someone who has over 40 years of experience in litigation, what will be your advice to a lawyer that has never set foot in court and is trying to figure out if litigation is for him? Do you have anything to?
Well, I would say that certainly in the United States, I think most every law school now has what's called an internship program. Now, it's voluntary and it's not required, All right, but if you're in law school, let's say you're a second or third year law student, and you have an inkling that you want to be a litigator, or you want to be a prosecutor, or you want to be a public defender, or you want to be a judge, you want to go clerk for a judge. Those are the types of things that the internship program allows you to do. So in the state of Florida, actually, a third year law student who's taking an internship with through their course of study, and you get course credits for it, then you have an opportunity to experience. But it's a law school experience, not an experience that you have a year before you can take the bar. I mean, you can take the Florida bar the day you get out of law school, right? Basically, the second you have your degree, you sit for the next bar exam. So there's no waiting period. So anybody who is still in law school and they offer these internship programs, it's the best thing in the world. And I think my third year was either the first or the second year after that internship program had been started. And I got assigned actually I had two assignments. I had first one was with a circuit court judge who was actually a judge in the probate division. And I clerked for him and wrote memorandums of law and reviewed evidence and all that kind of good stuff. And then he actually got appointed to the Court of Appeals. And so there wasn't a judicial clerkship intern, so they moved me to the state attorney's office in the misdemeanor division, and I got to try some misdemeanor traffic cases and other minor crimes, and I found that I actually did really, really enjoy that. So I wasn't afraid of taking those things on when I actually started to practice. All right. Experience is very critical, but listen, not everybody that gets out of law school gets offered a job. Well, what are you supposed to do, right? Go cook hamburgers at Burger King? No. You start holding yourself out as a lawyer, and anybody that needs a lawyer, come see me. And then you got to figure it out from there. But man, you got to prepare yourself, and you got to be willing to dive into the books a little bit. You need to be willing to have resources in the form of other lawyers that you're friends with that might be more versed in a particular area of law. You've got to take advantage of your resources. You can't be afraid to ask questions. When you go to court, a lot of the judges, most of the time, if you did something wrong, they'll tell you did that wrong, go fix it and come back. All right. So it's not, the worst thing in the world. You're not going to get, dashed by a judge right away. And they understand that new lawyers that are just starting out in their practice aren't going to know how to dot their I's and cross their T's. Another thing that new lawyers can and should do is take advantage of the bar programs for small and sole practitioners. And there's so many resources from technology to continuing legal education to, treatises, and they're always there to help you with ethical problems and ethical questions. And the Florida bar in particular is very adept at trying to get their young lawyers. We actually have a young lawyers division of the Florida bar. I was probably a member of that 30 years ago. All right. Now the senior division, but no, they have a young lawyers division, which basically operates on its own and also offers all these resources for new practitioners. It wasn't like that really when I started out. I mean, these programs are all within probably the last 15, 20 years. But they're there to make it easier, and you just have to be willing to take the time to avail yourself of those resources, and that becomes invaluable.
Right. So would you say for someone who has never set foot in court, would it make sense for them to, just go and sit instead of a courtroom and just listen and see what
I think that's a great idea. So for example, just a practical example of that is, let's say I go to court other than a court that I'm used to going to, all right, like in a different city or what have you, all right? I'm not going to know exactly what that judge's procedures are, or who that judge is, or how he acts, or what he's like, and this, that, and the other thing. And I will typically either go beforehand to get a glimpse of what I can expect, or I make sure that I'm not the first lawyer there so that I can sit and watch what all the other lawyers say and then get up and say the same thing. All right? And now all of a sudden I look like I know what I'm doing. All right. So there are ways to it. There's a lot of times I'll go to court on a sudden, like in criminal court. I mean, I really wasn't raised on criminal law. Right. But once I started doing the gaming stuff, I found that I was doing a lot of criminal law. Right. And so I would, different types of hearings get set, and so you go to court and you're not sure what the hell you're there for, right? I always make sure I'm like 10th in line so that I can hear everybody else, right? And that I know what to do, and I know what the issues are, and I know what the judge is going to say. So there's ways to prepare yourself for that, right? And it takes a little bit of skill on your own, but you can't be afraid to ask questions, and you can't be afraid to fail. Right? Because typically you're going to have a chance to fix it and do it over again. Right? That's the way it is, with the law practice almost anywhere. So have confidence in yourself. Don't be afraid. What's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen, judge will rule against you, tell you what you did wrong. You go back and you fix it. All right? It's nothing to be scared of. And now the next time you're all set because you know what to do. Right? So that was a good question, and very important for young lawyers to adhere to.
So can you share, a war story that, a legal war story or some sort of story from a case that you've been through that, is really memorable for you?
I've got probably quite a few of those. I can remember one case back in the early 90s where I represented like this huge national collection agency out of New York, right? And I had a good relationship with the owner. And one day he calls me up and he says, my wife's aunt died and she left a $10 million estate, and can you handle that for us? And I'm like, sure, why not? Never handled one before, but I didn't say that. All right. And so I wound up taking the case, found out real quickly that I had no idea what I was doing. All right. Had a lawyer on the other, and what the issue was my client's wife, right, and her sister were the two beneficiaries of their aunt's $10 million estate, right? So I thought it was easy. Right? I mean, here, you take 5, I'll take 5, see ya. Right? No problem. But no, right? That wasn't exactly the way that it went. They wound up fighting this $10 million estate. They wound up fighting about the $60,000 worth of personal jewelry that the aunt hadn't assigned to. And I'm telling you, I had to fly to New York for depositions. I made probably $150,000 on that case because they fought about $60,000 worth of jewelry in a $10 million estate. And every day I woke up, I said to myself, well, that's great for me, but I don't know, if I was getting half of a $10 million estate, I was just like, give it to me. I'll go buy my own jewelry. I don't need hers, all right? So that was, a good example of the slogan that some of us have that goes as follows. If it wasn't for principle, lawyers would never make a dime, right? So, listen. A client comes in, and this is what young lawyers need to know. A client comes in. One of the first things you want to do with that client is find out what the client's goal of the representation is, all right? What do you want out of it? The way that I ask that question to all my new clients is, if a little genie could come out of a bottle and grant you any wish, in this case, what would it be? Because I want to get an idea of what their expectations are, what it is that they're hoping to accomplish, whether they want a nasty legal battle, they want a quick settlement, they want to find the easiest way out. And it can be, the people with the most money want the nastiest litigation, and the people with the least amount of money The second you tell them how much it's going to cost, they want the easiest, least expensive solution. A lot of times, the not so well-heeled clients want you to take on some major complex case on a contingency fee, right? Well, I would suggest to all your young lawyers out there that the only cases you want to take on contingency fee are personal injury cases where there's an insurance company that represents the defendant. Because if you don't have a deep pocket, guess what? You can get $1 million judgment. What good is it going to do you? I just saw in the news that the family of this guy that was in prison in North Korea for 17 months, and by the time they shipped him back to the United States, he was a paraplegic, and a couple weeks later he died, right? So the parents filed a wrongful death action against North Korea, right? And the judge today awarded them millions and millions of dollars, right? But how are they ever going to collect it, all right? Good luck going after the North Korean government to try to, right? Sure, they don't have any assets in the United States that you can, that you can put your fingers on, right? So if a lawyer, great case, I mean, great damages, obvious liability, all right? But if you have that case on a contingency fee basis, you just did an awful lot of work that you're never going to get paid for, right? And not only that, you're laying the cost out of your pocket in the interim. So don't let clients convince you how good their case is, so good that you should take it on a contingency fee, because in commercial cases, in any case where you don't have an insurance company or a bank that you're suing or something, somebody has a deep pocket, right? You got to be very careful about that, or you wind up doing way too much pro bono work.
Right, we have a connection problem.
We do? Do we have a connection problem?
No.
I can hear you. So, right, great. Well, that was actually it. That's it. I'm out of questions.
No more questions. Okay.
No more questions. So, Michael, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I know that any young lawyer, or even any lawyer, that's starting his own firm, is going to find a lot of value in what you had to say, because, oh my God, so many years of experience, and it's amazing. And thank you for sharing it.
Well, my pleasure. And if you should tell whoever your viewers are, whoever you distribute this interview to go to my website, mhwlawfirm.com, right? And they can call me with questions that they have. I'm always happy to give back to to the profession and young lawyers that need some guidance.
Thank you so much, and that is actually really generous of you, so thank you for that.
My pleasure.